Hey, well, good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. I'm Tom Miller, and I'm so excited that you took some time with me on this beautiful, beautiful Saturday. It is here in Florida. I hope it's a beautiful day wherever you are as well. So, whether you're here with us live, thank you, or you listen to the recording, I thank you. This is going to be not a sexy training, but it's going to be a really important one. You're going to feel sexier once you actually implement everything that we've got to share with you today. If you're a member of our Blueprint for Success program, this is our monthly mentorship. If you're not a member of our Blueprint for Success, this was a special invitation because I felt that what I was going through and what I was growing through was important for me to share with you. So thanks for being an important member of our community. I only sent this out to special people, and you're one. And you see, I'm wearing my Batman shirt this morning, and you might be thinking, why is Tom wearing a Batman, right? Because Batman, school leaders, sometimes we try to be superheroes and we try to solve every problem ourselves. But here's the truth, like being being a school leader is not about being a superhero. It's having super systems. That's what keeps the city, right? Or in our case, the school safe and thriving. Um, now, Batman's a perfect example of leading by force. I mean, he pushes himself to the limit, right? And he can win some battles that way, but it typically comes at a pretty huge cost, right? He's always exhausted, he's reactive, he's always firefighting, right? In his cape. Now, imagine though if Batman lived in Overflow, right? If he had systems and a team that really carried the load. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? How to stop trying to be the superhero who does everything and instead build systems, right? So your school can run at a high level without you burning out, right? Without you burning out. If you want to lead your school without burning out, give a yes in the box or in the comments, wherever you're listening to. So I'm going to refer a lot to my book, The 10 Indicators of High Performing Charter Schools. And don't worry, everybody, if you're not a charter school leader, it's okay. This book's good. It's great for everybody. In fact, it's great even for business owners. So this was the original copy that was actually printed. You see, it's not for resale. So, but I'm going to refer to it a lot. So if you have a copy, you may want to grab it. And if you've got the Blueprint for Success program, there's an e-copy of the book in there for you. And if you're not an owner of the book, you can grab it on Amazon. Or you can go to our webpage, 10indicators.com, and I'll send you a signed copy. But I'm going to be referring to this a lot and our Blueprint for Success program. And our Blueprint for Success program is it's all the frameworks, right? It's all the successful frameworks that you need to lead and grow your school. Okay. It's all the successful frameworks that you need to lead and grow your school. And I'll share some areas of that in a bit. But make sure if you're here with us live, drop a question in the chat, something you want to make sure that I address during the call today, or some sort of, burning question, and I'll make sure I'm going to hold on. So I'm going to do about 20, 25 minutes of teaching, and then I'll stay on Q&A as long as folks are in here. So let's do this and let us know where you're joining us from if you're here live. All right. So Batman's ready. I'm ready. I got my notes. Now look, we're in the third, the second full month of school. Most of us. Our school opened up August 4th and was our first day for teachers. And here's just a quote that I want to just kind of put in your ear, right? It's one of my favorite James Clear quotes, and James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits. And he said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall, right? You fall to the level of your systems." And about 3 weeks ago, I was just feeling, just yucky, right? I was tired. I was, cranky. I wasn't the best that I needed to be, not just for my team at school, but at home too, right? And I know how lots of leaders are feeling. I'm constantly coaching and talking to other school leaders, and they're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, constantly having to react to discipline issues or parent issues or behavior fires or human resource problems. They feel, a lot of them feel lonely and supported, whether they're an assistant principal or even the head of the school, unsure that they're handling things the right way, right? Afraid to ask for help because that shows some sign of weakness, right, in their mind. They're pulled in every direction. Everything feels urgent, right? From parent complaints, and maybe you got a lot of students you weren't maybe prepared for, or you didn't have enough students show up, right? We've got a lot of schools, struggling out there with either attendance issues or retention issues from the year before, which is causing, financial problems, right? So if that sounds familiar, right, that's force, right? That is when you're in that mode of overwhelmness, right? As my mentor says to me, Tom, you're not overwhelmed, you're underpurposed, right? You're underclear with what your day needs to look like and feel like and what you should be doing with your time. But high performing schools, they don't have fewer problems, right? They just have stronger systems, right? They have stronger systems. So let's explore, right, the reasons for some of these, systems and why they're so important and why they matter. First of all, systems, they're repeatable processes, right? And they get consistent results. They're repeatable processes to get consistent results. And without systems, the leader becomes the system, right? Without written down, followed frameworks and systems, the leader becomes the system. And it could be the leader of the school, it could be the leader of a division, the leader of a project, right? They become ultimately the system, and that creates frustration, burnout, resentment, resistance, right? And nothing grows in those modes. So, lots of examples of frameworks that are, or actually, you could just kind of think of it this way. Every time, every time, every time that there is a fire to put out, right? You can go back and you can basically realize that a system is either broken or non-existent. And the non-existent part would just means it just lives within the head of somebody, right? So everything in your school that creates um, exhaustion or changed behavior in a negative way, or the feeling of stress. It's a lack of system. Great example. This just happened at our school the other day. Um, uh, we have a golf team, and our golf coaches left, and we had coverage for one of the classes, but the other class, the students got dispersed. And a parent, of course, of one of the students in the dispersed class came to pick them up early, right? Right. This is a perfect example. And the front office person didn't know where they were because systematically, right, nobody communicated to the front office person where the kid is, right? So the front office person is looking at the schedule and saying, well, they're supposed to be here, right? And I don't particularly know the student face to name. So I'm like, well, and our paging system was down. So we couldn't page the whole school, right? This is in the eyes of the front office person. Couldn't page the whole school. Like, well, so do we end up going class to class? Hey, is such and such here, such and such, class to class, right? Where could they be? Where could they? In the meantime, I'm trying to call the teacher who's on the road, right? There's another assistant principal also looking, for the student, and ultimately, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to go to this dad and be like, hey, does your daughter have a cell phone? Maybe you could call her, like, so we can track her down, right? But a perfect. So after almost 10 minutes of running around looking for her, uh, she wasn't even in that class to start with. The front office person read the schedule wrong. So we found her right where she was supposed to be. Now, ultimately, you could say, well, Tom, if the front office person just read the schedule right, we would have found her right away. Yeah, true. However, the fact that there was no clear, systematic, communicated process, either way, it didn't work. Because if the teacher who did disperse her kids, right, would have told everybody, we would have known immediately where to go, immediately where to go. Or if we had a backup to when the pager goes down. There's so many things in play. So one of the most important things when you have a situation like that is the after action review. This is the first system I want to make sure that you all have in play at your school. The after action review. When the fire is, smoldering, right? When it's no longer, getting bigger, you bring your team together and you ask them. And this is in my book, right? This is in my book. I believe it's in probably chapter 8 or 9, which is all about, systems and operations and, compliance. But it's what went wrong, right? One, what went wrong? When did it go wrong? How did we miss it, right? How did we miss it? And then how, how's it going to be fixed, right? Who's going to fix it? So, uh, when I got back, so I had to go actually drive to the middle school to go get the rest of our kids because our bus is in overflow. So I came back and I said to the assistant principal, I said, "Hey, did you have your after action review?" She's like, "Oh no, not yet." I go, "No, you got to have it immediately after, right? Because the whole point is after figure out what went wrong, why did it go wrong, right? When did it go wrong? Like how did we miss it? Then it's okay. Who was responsible? My thumbs up here, and I don't know how to put it down. Who is responsible for fixing it, right? So who's going to put a system in play, tomorrow, right? And then you gather that team back up and you talk about, okay, this is what we're going to do moving forward. Now, as the leader, it's my responsibility, which I know I haven't yet, going back, say, okay, what system did you put in play? What's different now? So now the front office person always knows when a teacher leaves campus, right? When a teacher leaves campus, one, they should be signing out, right? Two, they need to communicate like, where their kids are, right? So everybody knows. So everybody knows. And three, right, going back to the failed, system of the pager, like what else can we use, right? What else can we use? We've got text threads, right? We've got the, walkie-talkies, right? What else could we use to call into classrooms, to call into classrooms? So that's just a pure, easy example that just happened this week, right? So it's my responsibility to get back with my principal and my AP. Hey, what did we decide to do? How are we going to make sure that doesn't happen again? Because if you're having the same fires over and over and over again, it's the definition of insanity, right? Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a better result. And so that's what we got. And sometimes that's what Batman does. Everybody, right? He just tries to force. So maybe you have an example of a broken system. You could think this week, right? What's something that happened that I ended up having to solve, right, as the head of school, which should have been easily handled through a system. Right? So that's the first one. After action review, super, super important. And, we've talked about why they matter, right? Because it's a repeatable process to get consistent results. So, and it creates clarity. Everyone knows what done would look like, right? Everyone knows what done would look like. So if you're trying to get to a specific goal, right, we would know this is what done would look like, right? Done would have been that student it was a custody exchange from the school to the dad within 2 minutes, right? Within 2 minutes, it should have been the case. So clarity, right? Clarity happens when you have systems in play. Consistency happens when you have systems in play, and it builds capacity. It builds capacity in people because here's what happens, right? When that student is missing, right, credibility goes down. The credibility of me to the front office person or me to the leadership team, right? Us to the dad, right? All those things, right? There's losing credibility because we didn't have a system in play. Because we didn't have a system. If this is making sense, give a like or a yes or a thumbs up or a yes in a box, whether you're listening live, right, or to the recording. This is important because I want you to be really thinking about the parts of your school that are constantly moving like this, right? Versus the ones that are always like all over the place, right? There's a difference, right? You want your school to flow, right? Like easy beat, a flow versus everything's all over the place and people are running around. I mean, think about the body language that creates when you're running around looking for a missing student, right? Looking for a missing student. There's nothing calm or clear or consistent about that. But when you build systems, you're building capacity in other people to execute at a higher level without the need, right? Without the need of Batman's tools, without the need of calling up, the bat sign, right? Is that what it is? The bat sign? Is that what they called it? I can't remember. So capacity, consistency, and clarity is created, right? So let's talk about some other places that we should have, systems. I've got like 12 down. Maybe we'll get through all of them. But maybe, maybe you've got something in mind. And again, if you just joined us late, right, most of these systems I'm talking about and the frameworks are right in my book, The 10 Indicators of High Performing Charter Schools. And so you can grab a copy on Amazon, or you can grab a copy through me. So would love for everybody to have a copy of this book. So for each system, and which is really funny, I actually walked my team through the development of systems, and that's actually there's a whole section of my book, right? The after action reviews on page 240, everybody. I just went past it, right? And on page 241 is a nine-step process to develop a system, right? You want to identify the named result, right? And for my case, I want the student to get in a custody exchange, right, without everybody running around. You diagram the system, right? You diagram the steps in a system. You write the system's, steps clearly. You will assign accountabilities, who's responsible for what in the system. Determine the timing, right? Identify required resources, determine how you quantify the system, establish those standards, and document the system. And that's a really important part. It's the documentation of the system, right? Because if I had to go to the front, desk and cover, I wouldn't know where to go or where to find anybody, right? So everybody's got to be able to follow these, systems. So as we're thinking about these systems, you want to also be thinking about, right, who needs to know how to do this? How would they know how to do it, right? Who needs to know and how would they know, right? So is it a written down step-by-step, process of how to do these things? So we're going to talk about in each of these, right? What the system is, what's the result we're trying to get, and then I'm gonna really talk about, right, what a high performing school has in play versus what most schools may do, because you know high performing leaders always have uh, clarity in their vision of what they want to achieve. Okay, they always have the clarity. So the first one, right, that probably happened to a lot of charter schools this year is your missed enrollment, right? You may have missed your enrollment goal. And in our book, right, we have the whole systems to ensure that 100% of your kids show up on day one. We've got our fully enrolled workbook, which is right in our blueprint for success program. But so high performing leaders know where every family is in the process, right? Every day, and we use an enrollment, scoreboard at our school, and the front office knows, hey, I'm updating this enrollment scoreboard every day, okay? And I can just go and click on the Google sheet. I know exactly where we are. I know exactly where enrollment is. I know exactly how many kids have turned in their packet. I know exactly how many kids came to the open house, right? And I know, right, through history, how much we should probably over enroll in certain grades to have. So on the first day of school, I'm not shocked to be like, oh my gosh, we fell 15 kids short, right? We fell 15 kids short. Now, what I'm looking at this year, right? What I'm looking at this year is the number of students who may either decline their spot, or kids that applied that didn't really qualify or didn't know that our school is a dual enrollment high school, that they had to go to college as juniors and seniors. Like that's another piece of the data, right? But so most schools, I mean, this just happened the other day. I was talking to a leader, and their school's under enrolled by 40 kids, and in their state, that's over a half a million dollars in revenue, half a million. And I was just like, well, at what point, right? At what point did you know that you were this many kids short? And they're like, oh, on the first day of school. It's like first day of school. You should have known, right, weeks before that you were going to be that short, so you could start to cut, right? You could start to cut expenses, right? Nobody should be guessing on the first day of school, uh, where are we? Nobody should be, surprised. But this happens, right? So, how many families slip through the cracks because there wasn't a system in play? And when I'm talking about enrolling your school, like right now, it's September 27th. Okay. Our open enrollment period starts, I think it's, January 1st-ish. Well, but we're going to start marketing next month. We start marketing our school next month. Like we're constantly marketing. Marketing is a relationship. Marketing is a relationship between you and the community, right? All the time, right? So recruitment doesn't only happen when you have openings. Recruitment happens all the time. This is for my staff and this is for my students. So next month in October, by the first week, we're going to have all of our jobs that we know we're going to have next year open are all going to be advertised. We're also going to start marketing into the community to fill the seats of our school. And that's why every grade level that we have has a wait list, right? But it's important to me, not that we have a wait list, but it's important to me that we're attracting the right families and we build a relationship with them now, right? We build a relationship with them now. So when it comes time to next year and next June or July, when they're being, have lots of other options, there is no other option. It's our school, right? That's the only school. So if you have our Blueprint for Success program, um, you can go down. I'm gonna scroll down to it right now. If you're part of our Blueprint for Success program, and if you're not, you easily can. I'll share a link and how you can become a member, right? But if you're a member of it, okay, this is where it starts. You can download your ebook. You've got our mission, education plan. How do you oversee the education plan? How do you develop your staff, right? Recruit staff, behavior-based hiring questions, create a healthy culture, get high levels of parent engagement, fiscal vitality, right? Okay. Each one of the 10 indicators, improving your board, has systems and processes and a framework. Now, the master classes are where we have the actual webinars and the teaching. So I believe we have in here how to market your charter school, and we should have our fully enrolled workbook in here somewhere. Making myself look bad here by not being able to find it, but it's definitely in here. The fully enrolled school. Oh, research checklist, maybe it's in that. Compliance checklist. We got the principal's quarterly checklist, but it's in here. I'll find it as we're talking. But it's a fully enrolled workbook. It's got to be in the finance section because that's where it is in the book. But it's here. Okay, so there's lots of great tools that you can have access to if you're not a member of our Blueprint for Success. And right now it's just $97 for a year. $97 for a year. It's not even $10 a month to have access to all these strategies, the steps to hiring a person, designing a school culture, building trust, okay, marketing your school, steps to transformation. There's some other lessons here. So there's a lot of great stuff. All right. A lot of great stuff. Oh yeah. And we just added our $1 million school fundraising blueprint. So this was the two day workshops that we did. Lots of great stuff in here. So there's lots of great tools. All right. And one of them is the fully enrolled workbook. I promise you it's in there. All right, let's get to our next framework. Okay, so we talked about that one, right? Enrollment pipeline. Okay, how about this? How about one here? Let's talk about um, data data-driven instruction, right? So this is indicator 3. It's really focusing on the oversight of your education plan. Now, most leaders, right? Most leaders of most schools, there's so much data, they don't know what to do with it, or they haven't been trained in it, or they don't have a set meeting to know, hey, like to talk with teachers one-on-one, or cohorts of teachers in terms of like your English department or your math department. What does this data mean? And most importantly, what are we doing? What are we doing about it? What is it telling us about our school, right? Uh, high performing leaders, right, use data in real time, right? They know when data is going to be available. They know when the meeting is. Okay, so I see this all the time when you build out your school calendar and you don't set time, right? That's after the bigger assessment to talk about, right? What's going well, what needs more focus and attention, right? And what's the plan, right? So having these set days and times in play, right, makes it easy. Everybody knows this is the data I need to have ready for my PLC meeting. This is the data I need to have ready, right, for my, quarterly review. Whatever it may, here's the data I need to have ready for my one-on-one with my head of school, right? So many meetings are lost time because of lack of preparation on the front end causes a lot of repairing on the back end. But it starts with building those times into your week or month or quarterly calendar. It's not taking a test and then going, okay, when is everybody available? When can we get together? Right? That's a reactive force, right? Versus a planned out flow. And that's what systems are. They're planned out, flow. So if data is not readily available, and this just happened at our school, right? Because not everybody took the first test at the same time. Everybody took the benchmarks, right? So because then we were only, able to talk about certain classes and certain, departments. So I said, hey, guys, for next year, like let's make sure, like let's do this right now. Let's start building next year's calendar right now. Okay. And let's decide, is this the assessment that we want to use moving forward? Is it giving us the information we need to make effective decisions for academic progress, right? Or do we have a bunch of hodgepodge things, right? Oh, well, we use Lexia for that, or we use IXL for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces that we've got to figure out. And which one is giving us the best information? Okay. That's the difference between force, right? Force, just, throwing things, and flow, right? There's a consistent, process, right? It's a daily check-in, right? It's a, it's a, it's a weekly assessment, right? It's a monthly unit. It's a quarterly deep dive. I mean, whatever it may be, whatever your flow is going to be is important, right? From your tier one instruction, right? Good tier one instruction to quality tier two instruction. And then obviously with your tier three and your students with disabilities. But let's just think about from a tier one perspective, do all of your teachers, this is right in chapter two, do all of your teachers know the answers to these questions every day? This is a system. What will students learn today? Number two, how will I know that they've learned it? Three, what will I do if they do learn it? And what will I do if they don't? Okay. What will students learn today? What will I do, or how will I know that they learned it? What will I do? Right? What will I do if they did learn it or if they didn't, right? So you have a great flow. Maybe your lesson plan drives right through this, right? Do it now activity. Maybe it's a review from yesterday as they're checking homework, right? The teacher's walking around, checking homework, and the kids are working on something. Okay. Then we move to the new concept, right? The new idea. This is right. And the teacher is maybe giving direct instruction, and the students are taking notes, right? The I do, we do, you do, process. Okay. And it goes from new concept to guided practice. We're doing it all together to independent practice. Okay. And the students, right, at our school, if you don't get 80% of them correct, right, you go to a small group instruction, the guided practice, right? The teacher lets you know, hey, you can start working independently, or hey, I may need to reteach. Come over here to the table. Okay. Come over. But it's a system, it's a process, whatever it may be in your school. It's got to have something. Teachers need to know, right? They need to be able to know the flow of what the lesson should be. Okay. What should the lesson be? Answering those questions. One, what will students learn today? Two, how I know that they've learned it. And three, what am I going to do after, right? For the kids who get it, how do I drive them right to the next level and ensure mastery, right? And mastery isn't that they do it until they get it right. It's that they practice enough until they never get it wrong. Okay. It's not they do it until they, get it right. It's they practice it until they never get it wrong. Thank you, Teresa. And so it's just really important to everybody to know that. So if you're talking to your teachers or you're in, doing observations, whether it's walkthroughs or, formal, it's I know where the teacher is in part of the lesson. I can tell what students are learning. I can tell that the teacher is formatively assessing them throughout the process. I know, right? I know by looking over the shoulder that a student gets it. that a student gets it. They understand, right? The work that's here in front of them, right, is exactly what's on the whiteboard, right? There's a system and a process for that. Okay. Now you might say, oh, Tom, you're micromanaging the heck out of everybody. Say, it's not micromanaging. It's following a system to make sure we get it right. Right. I don't always care how the sausage is made, but I like to eat. Right. But I know that this has a systematic process that my teachers need to know how to get there. And they need to know and be clear on all those. And every minute matters. I mean, think about how many days of school right now kids are missing. And then add how many days of school your teachers are calling out. And then how many days of school is there an event of some kind where maybe a class gets cut short, right? Or maybe the teacher wasn't, prepared for that day. Whatever it may be, those things happen. If you only have 180 days of instruction at your school, 30 or 40 of those days might get lost from, student absences and teacher absences, snow days, hurricane days, whatever. Things happen. You got to make sure, right, that there's clearly a plan and there's a defined level of mastery in your school. What is the defined number of mastery in your school? Is it 80%, 90%, or is it 100%? Whatever, whatever. I mean, my son, he used to go to a school where 80% was the bottom line, right? That was the bottom line expectation. And that's what he did. Now the bottom line expectation for IXL, it's 100. Got to get to 100. He's like, oh my gosh, the last like five like questions are so hard because they're worth like so many more points, right? But it's a decided, committed to, clear framework that now everybody understands, and that becomes your norm. Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Yeah, best practice. I guess it's better practice now, right? So, all right, so we've talked about enrollment. We've talked about some, here's another part of the lesson planning process. This has happened to us too. And this was really great. My mentor, Joy, our team's mentor, Joy, like she's just so great. And she helped us out with this. But, you know, lesson planning, alternative assessments. Lesson planning, alternative assessments, right? So at times you're going to have, right, you're going to have, parents that don't want kids to read certain books, or you're going to have, right, kids that just find like, this is so awful. I mean, whatever it is, every teacher should know when I know what is it that I want students to learn and what mastery looks like. The actual like vehicle may not matter, right? I can get I can get to the beach from my house. It's a mile away right now. I can take my car. I could take my bike. I could run. I could walk, right? I could get a ride from someone else. I could take a golf cart. Seems to be the vehicle of choice for a lot of people around here, right? So I want you to be thinking about and making sure that your teachers are in that third, question when students do learn it, what do they do next, right? So are there alternative supplemental lessons, right, that kids can grab onto to increase their level of mastery, right? So teachers need to be planning ahead and thinking on that, but they also need to be thinking about alternative ways to get there. Alternative ways, to get there. So um, it could be other books that kids could choose from. It could be other poems that kids could choose from. It could be, hey, can I answer my questions verbally? Right? Can I record myself answering the questions? Right? Because, the whole goal is mastery. And I think too many times we get so, stuck on like the way. It has to be this way. Nah, that's only a way, right? There's lots of different ways to get there. So one of the parts that I wrote down is high performers, right, require proactive planning, including alternative assignments, right, for, potential, concerns. These things happen. We've got like the Parents' Bill of Rights out there in, lots of states. I mean, there's a lot of people, pushing back against certain, curriculums in schools. Okay, right? So what's the process to make sure it's like, look, you don't have to read this one. Or you can do an alternative assignment. Like why do all the kids have to do the same thing all the time? So I think high performing schools create flexibility okay, within the responsibility, right? If I'm making you fully responsible for the result, student mastery, I also have to give you authority to make decisions. And those decisions can't be this way, right? It has to be like all sorts of ways. Leadership goes out, right? It's out to in. It's how can I be better for you? How can I lean into you? If you've got 30, if you're a teacher and you expect 30 kids to lean into your way all the time, oh my gosh, it's going to be harsh, especially middle school and high school, right? So just really be thinking about what are some alternative ways to get to the three answers. What do I need? What will students learn today? How will I know that they've got there, right? What am I prepared to do if they do or if they don't? I just think that's really, really important. It's really important when you're doing it. And all that planning includes like what are all the rungs of the ladder that a student needs to know to be able to get there? Because that way, I mean, if you've ever had that fifth grade teacher who says, you should have learned that in third grade, I don't have time, like you just know, like, okay, that's a problem. I've got to I got to bring that teacher back. Okay, what are all the steps? What are all the steps that a kid needs, to do? And a great, if you want to do this with your teachers, something I do, I say, hey, let's write down all the steps that it takes to brush your teeth. All the things. Start from like walking into the bathroom, right? What are all the steps? Turning on the light, right? Do you grab your toothbrush first? You turn the water on, you grab the toothpaste, you got to take the cap off. I got to be able to squeeze. I got to be able to have all these skills, right? All these things. And I say, great. Now let's do the same thing for like double digit math with regrouping. What are all the things that kids need to know how to do? Like all those steps. There's so many task analyses within, learning. And a teacher has to make sure the kids knew how to do all that. So what do I need them to know how to do? Right, with consistency and clarity, all that takes a lot of preparation. All right. So let's do two more. Let's do preparing for meetings. This is maybe one of the most important aspects of it. And preparing for meetings in my book, I believe I think it's in chapter 3. And there's some really great strategies. And in the Blueprint for Success, there is the whole effective meetings training, right? And the cascading communication. This is a really important skill because if you think about how much time is lost in preparing in meetings, when you've got your whole team around the table, maybe there's 10 of them, maybe there's 15 of them, or their whole staff, right? Do they have the answers to all of these questions? And I love, so if you've got my book, it starts on page 64, I think, leading engaging meetings. But right, these are common culture killing, unhealthy meeting practices that I wrote. The meeting doesn't start on time. The meeting doesn't end on time. The participants wander off topic. The participants are multitasking, including doing other work. Participants are using their cell phones, checking their social media. After the meeting ends, there's no follow through, right? So in here, I wrote a specific system and a framework to make sure that everybody has. And there's a productive meetings checklist, right? Clear expectations for every participants, right? Does everybody know why they're here? Does everybody know the purpose of this meeting? Does everybody know what the expectation is walking out of the meeting, right? Is there an agenda? Does the meeting start on time and end on time? Does there assign preparation duties? Maybe there's a note taker, right? Maybe there were some things that we had to do to prepare for the meeting. Okay. What is the notes I have to bring or the data I have, to bring? Okay. Everybody's clear on the desired outcomes. Okay. Assigned action. So this is what I wanted to share at the end of the meeting. At the end of the meeting, okay, you stop 5 minutes before the meeting end time. Say, great. What decisions did we make today? What decisions did we make today? Make sure everybody's got committed to decisions and everybody's clear about them. And then you ask, who, who, who's not in this room, who needs to know about these decisions? When do they need to know by? And who's going to tell them? I'll say this again. Who's not in this room, needs to know about these decisions? Who needs to know? When do they need to know by? And who's going to tell them? I'm telling you, if you stopped every meeting 5 minutes and made sure that those are answered out loud, and then obviously follow through, because that's your job as a leader. 24 hours after a meeting, 48 hours at the most, you got to be walking around checking in. Did what we decided, is it happening? Right? That's that clarity piece. Is it happening? It's a huge systematic framework, right? Who needs to know, when they need to know by, and who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them? I mean, think about this. How many times have you walked around your school and thought about um, who, right? Either who should be doing, someone asks you a question and you're like, who should know this or who would know that it's done? So every time one of my team members comes to me about something and they say, right, let's just say that's Mike's job. And I go, does Mike know that? Well, he should. How do you know? Right? What would make it sure, right, that Mike knows? If Mike knew, guess what, everybody? It'd be done. So just assume that Mike doesn't know. Okay. Just assume Mike doesn't know. Now, here's the thing. Assumptive leadership is the worst level of leadership. It's the worst. If you assume that everybody just knows what to do, you're going to be disappointed a lot. Okay. You're going to be disappointed a lot. So what I want you to do, right, is just make sure, like, how do we ensure, right? How do we ensure? And there's a great book that Michael Hyatt wrote. I must have given it away because it's not on my shelf. I'm looking at my library here. It's called No Fail Leadership. I think it's the best communication book I've ever read. Best communication book I've ever read, called No Fail Communication. Sorry, No Fail Communication, right? So every meeting with who needs to know, what do they need to know, right? How will we tell them? Okay. Because what happens is most leaders send, reactive, large memo type emails. And that can be fine as the final follow-up, right? But I got to get commitment at the meeting, and everybody needs to know, right, who's going to communicate to who by when. By when. Yeah. I love it. Thanks, Dorothy. Dorothy dropped a question in. The main challenge of our school is that subject specialists expect teachers to assess learners using common question papers provided by the department. This creates high rate of underperformance in our schools. Yeah. So what would be, right? Dorothy, right? What would be I'm just trying to reread your question here because it might be like this is just what has to happen, right? What would be the best, right? The best vision for you, right? What do you want to see happen and how do we get there? So for example, if you want to make sure that every teacher knows, whether it's per day or per week, right, what was the percentage of mastery on the standards? What would be the tool, right? What would be the acceptable tools that would give you the information to move forward? Because what's really most important, and everybody knows this on this call, what's most important is, what do I do with the information? What do I do with the information? And you have to ask yourself, do my teachers know that answer? I remember, and I talked about this in the book, that I remember sitting with a leadership team. There was five individuals. They were executive directors and principals and instructional coaches. And I said, "Hey, what's the curriculum of the school?" And of the five people, I got four different answers. I said, "Well, if you five don't have clarity and consistency on your responses, how the heck did the 30 people out that door know?" So it starts with, right, what will students learn? How will we know that they've learned it? And what are we going to do? Now, whatever this, you said that expect the teachers use this common question, right? When you look at, you say this creates a high rate of underperformance for the schools, right? What's actually creating the underperformance? Okay. And it could be, right? It could be that I don't know what to do with the information, right? Or I expect the kids just teach themselves. As a parent, right, of my school, I mean, sometimes I get emails from the teachers, and I just think about, Hmm. Does that teacher know what to do? Do they know how to help my son get to the next step? Right? What are those practices? And these are my employees, right? But I'm looking at it from a parent's, not just the parent's perspective. I'm looking at it from an evaluative. Does the teacher know what to do? And so when you can get to that point, because differentiation is by far like the hardest skill, the hardest skill for it's easy to just kind of teach to the middle. It's really difficult to be able to have a flowing process where I can like, the bottom line of my class is my highest performing student. Like, how do I get everybody to rise to the top rather than spend the majority of my time in the few who don't know how to do it, okay? Who don't know how to do it. Hey, Valerie, I love it. And I'm, happy to, I don't know if I answered your question, Dorothy, but that would be the question I think I would ask, right? What is actually creating the underperformance? Is it the lack of the skill or the lack of the time, right? I mean, because not every school has built-in time for intervention. And so in the book, I talk about the importance of and intervention, prevention and intervention, right? Do I have those systems in play? I remember one of the best schools I was ever able to walk the halls. It was one of the schools in my dissertation, and it's one of the schools that I talk about in my book. It's a Franklin Academy, but they had a systematic process for everything. And mastery was 80%. And if a student at any time dropped below 80% on one of those weekly assessments, they immediately went into what they call double dose. I don't know if they still call it at the time, but it was called double dose. And so that kid, right, he or she had their normal, let's just say it was, reading, a comprehension lesson, but then they went and got an extra 30 minutes, right? And it was built into the schedule. So, they weren't missing anything, but it's built into the schedule. And until that kid got their skill above 80, they couldn't, right? They had to go back, right? Or they couldn't go back into that class, but they would continue to reassess on all those pieces. All right. Valerie would like to make a comment. All right, Valerie.
Hi,
Welcome.
hi, good, happy Saturday,
Happy
everyone.
Saturday. Yeah.
Thank you for the invite. Tom, you're amazing. I read your emails and I follow
Oh,
you on
thanks.
social media. And as a former teacher,
Hmm.
now district administrator, I started off in charter. It's always amazing to just, take the strategies that I learned and
Hmm.
see them in real application. Now, I work for New York City Public Schools, and I would say if they just use the same formula, we would just be in a better place as a district and as a society that services the largest school systems across the
Mm.
United States. So right now, I'm doing my doctorate. I'm a SEL fellow. I'm a district administrator. I support with culture and climate. But I'm really excited to join this conversation and just give you your flowers and just continue to know that in New York City, your impact is seen and felt. And shout out to you.
Well, that's really
That's all.
kind. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to make a difference just like you, Valerie, right? We're just here to do that. And yeah, I mean, it's important when everybody knows the strategy. I mean, you can put it this way, everybody. A goal without a plan or a goal without a strategy is just a wish. And so everyone needs to know what's the strategy. Okay, what's the strategy we're going to use to do two things, right? One, it could be move our students from um, you know, below grade level to above grade level. And what's the strategy that we're going to get our uh, at grade level kids to above grade level? And that's our school is a college and career prep school. So that's what I'm always challenging our teachers to do. Like, hey, 80 to 90% of our kids are already at grade level. What are we doing to take them to the next level? And here's the crazy thing, Valerie, what you just said. The strategy might be the same to get from a one to a two and a two to three, to get the kid from a four to a five. It's just continuous, consistent, practice at a higher level, raising the standards and just making it higher. But you got to build in the time and the strategy to do that. So that also means pruning. Okay. You got to prune. So some things from your education plan or from your lesson might have to be pruned. They may have to be cut to build in the time to do it. And that's what I loved about that school was that they had built in the time. They built in the intervention time. They didn't have to find the time. They built in the time. So that is just part of their systematic framework to do that. And so it's just really important, I think, that you just be thinking of your schools in systems and frameworks, right? And anytime there's an underperforming area, just like Valerie shared, that there's either a system that's broken or a system that isn't working, or what James Clear, talks about in Atomic Habits, which I'm going to make sure um, that I share that out. Uh, so everybody who's on the call, I'm gonna put a link for you to get a copy of the book Atomic Habits, the like electronic version. I'm gonna put it in here. So watch the chat here in a second. But he said the strategy needs to be measured as rigorously as the goal, right? So you've got to be analyzing, evaluating the strategy just as much as or even maybe more, that you're evaluating the actual physical goal. And that's really important. Like, is the strategy working? So while I'm thinking about it, because I'll forget, I'm gonna drop it in here. This book, Atomic Habits, is great. Uh, so look in the chat. There you go. Okay. So in the chat, so you can download it. Okay. So I think I'm gonna end there. I'll talk about one more. And then we're gonna end. But your staff development and your feedback. So this is indicator 4 if you've got a copy of our book. Um, high performing leaders, schedule regular coaching cycles versus most leaders, right? Just a hope to get into the classroom. They hope to be able to give some feedback, right? They hope to, right? And hope is not a strategy, everybody. Hope is never a strategy. But, high performing, right? So they've either intentionally hired somebody and made sure they're trained in in the development of other people, right? To get into that classroom, do the work and give feedback and actually have natural coaching cycles occur, right? Or they're having very specific professional development, right? That is intentionally chosen based upon the challenges that maybe their school is facing, or that their student base is facing, right? Or they're looking forward. Like, so last year, I brought in Brian Setzer from the Setzer Group. He did a whole day of AI training with my staff last year. So you're talking fall of 24, and it at the time, most people on our staff hadn't even used it. I'd say maybe there was maybe three, right? And I was just starting to actually dabble in it. And now from that, I'd say 80% of our staff uses some form of new AI, whether it's chat or one of those other things, right? To either drive their lesson planning, review student work, to create tiered assessments or tiered rubrics, or tiered aside. Like, they're constantly using it, and we have AI driven classrooms too. So now our kids are starting to also learn how to use it effectively, right? Where most schools still, and most, like, they won't even touch it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to get ahead. You got to get ahead of the curve, right? So there's three reasons for professional development. There's one, to really stay on the cutting edge and see what's coming forth. Two is to address a specific problem, right? So it could be emotional learning was a big one for us this year. Emotional capacity, the whole like SEL piece, right? How do we better engage not just our adults but our kids in the room? So SEL has been a big piece, and now we're also focusing on differentiation. And we're an honor school of excellence. We've been an A school for 22 years, and we need to learn how to do this better. We need to learn how to know where students are at the beginning, right? How to assess them, and how do we take them to that next higher level. So it's really important, right, that you've got systems in play for every aspect of your school, and that's what the book was built to do. So I'll end my time. I thought I had put some, yeah, is around, right? So how do you build this into your day, right? How do you build systems, right? As the chief, systems, school leader, it needs to be a part of your visionary principle schedule, right? So how you create your day is also a system, right? How do you start your day? How do you end your day? right? What are your anchors, right? What are your weekly anchors? Do you have your weekly tactical meeting, right? Do you have your weekly communication to your families and your staff, right? Do you have your weekly coaching feedback blocks? Do you have your weekly academic? I mean, right? Everything happens. It happens per day, per week, per month, and you've got to be making sure as a leader that you are being proactive, not reactive in your day. So part of it, right? The visionary principle doesn't cram systems into spare time, right? They schedule everything throughout the week and they have some sort of way. We had our executive director collective meeting yesterday and it was really great because we talked about this and I really learned a lot about how the school leaders in that, program with us, right? How they're, planning out their day. So, at the end of the day, Friday, one of them is looking at next week and they look at all the meetings that they need to have. Is there anything that they need to do or communicate over the weekend? Maybe they're having all their emails all already scheduled out, right? And so their Friday, make sure that they have a nice weekend and a great start to Monday. It's like, oh, I love that, right? So how you end your day, how you start your day, how you go through your day, right? How you're pruning things off, how you're equipping other people. All those things are frameworks that you need to build in to your daily routine, right? Your weekly action, right? And your 30-day goals if you have them, right? So you can't just cram them into your spare time. It has to be part of your process. And one of the great tools that we use that our collective members use was our 15-minute miracle. And I will drop this in, to the chat. If you're willing to do it, it's next week. Print out 5 copies and every day audit your time. Audit your time. How do I spend every minute of every day? And then just work through the reflective questions. You're going to really see how you're using your time, right? Versus how you desire to use your time. And that's going to really help you build that out. So, because if you've got part of our blueprint, then you should also have our time management system. And there's whole ways to build out your time. So I will hang on if anybody's got any additional questions. And if you don't have a copy of the book, you can grab it on Amazon. It'll be there in 2 days, or you can go to our 10indicators.com website, 10indicators.com, and I'll send you a signed copy. Or you could join our Blueprint for Success, program. So if you're not part of our Blueprint for Success program and you want to hop in now, I'm going to make sure I've had that link as well. But I'll open up the queue. You guys can unmute yourself if you have any questions.
Hi, Tom.
Hey,
Um, I'm driving, so pardon any road noise.
yeah, you be
Um,
careful.
I just had a quick question. Finally have a wonderful dean, and she's freaking amazing.
Mm.
And one of the things that we're struggling with time-wise is how to schedule our time in classrooms. She's also coaching as well as me, but how do we schedule our time together so we both get time in classrooms and also have time to be available for
All the other
being
stuff.
available for discipline and
Yep. Yeah.
other stuff.
I love it. Yeah. So be very, very intentional, right? So if so I think, right, you've got to do 2 things. If part of your key result area expectations, Teresa, is to develop the teachers, right? There's only 2 ways to improve your school. It's to improve the teachers you have or to get, better ones, right?
Hmm.
That has to go on your calendar first, right?
Okay.
So you block off time each week, right? And it could be a certain time per day, or it could be a certain day per week where all you're doing is you're in classrooms, okay? And
Okay.
then and then you're telling your front office, right? Hey, unless this school is on fire or the police are here, um, I'm not available, right? And your front office staff has to be confident and have the systems to be able, if an angry parent shows, and if they don't have a meeting, you don't have to see them, right? And
Right.
that's what drives me crazy. I see all the time when teams are in meetings or teams are in classrooms and they're called out for the most tiny things. So when those are happening, those are systems you've got to go back and repair to make sure
Okay.
that your front office knows. Okay. So, so you build out that, flow. And I'm going to send you our notes from yesterday so you can kind of take a look at this. But you're going to build out your flow. So if that's your dean's like main job, then that your dean's got to schedule all that first. And it
Okay.
has to be completely blocked off and no interruption time. But that means that they need to know, you know, have they been trained in, coaching?
Hmm.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So, so they've got all that tools ahead of time. They need to know where they're going, why they're in there, right? And then they, have to move on. And then you two need to have a weekly, and you probably already do this. You both need a weekly time together, uninterrupted time, 30 to 45 minutes. What did we see, right? Who's doing really
Yep.
well and needs a pat on the back and maybe some more opportunities, and who do we need to like help and right? And so you just build that into your
Bryce?
into your flow.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then here's the last thing I'll say, and this is for everybody. Never schedule more than half your day because you asked how do I get to the other stuff, right?
Right.
You should never allow for half your day to be already consumed by something, and people should have to fight for their lives to get on your calendar time. So you've got to be really really rigid with who you let on your calendar and why they're there, right? And maybe someone else can handle some of those things. So I use like a Google Calendar. Like I love Google now. You can actually like create like someone can schedule time with you, and then you say, hey, go ahead and go to my link, and you can because I've already built that time into my day, right? There's an hour per day that I take meetings, right? There's an hour per day that I work on emails, right? So but those are all during my like non key times. Like I'm at my best between 4:30 a.m. and probably like 11 or noon, right? It's
Yeah.
because I'm old. And so but my afternoon is my lead by walking around time. My
Uh-huh.
afternoon is like my follow-up time with phone calls, right? And that's when I can handle the fires. And if like a discipline situation happens in the morning, you say, hey, here's who addresses discipline in the morning. Here's who addresses discipline in the afternoon. I mean, whatever it is, you just work with your
Okay.
dean, just to make those things happen. Is that helpful?
Awesome. Yep, very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Just be super intentional with it, and I'll shoot you some thoughts of what we did yesterday. So, yep.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
I have yeah, so I in my role I support with culture and climate
Hmm.
suspensions, but I do like because I was a principal, they have me doing a lot of instructional work also. And I say I'm like a 911 operator
Mm.
because when a crisis call comes, I have to email, I have to do that. But I'm also doing a teacher to AP pipeline. I'm the head of the district student advisory council. I also support school counselors. I'm on a hiring committee, and the list goes on and on. So, lately this year, I've been tasked with going into 113 new teachers' classrooms across the district to provide classroom management
Mm.
support. And I'm starting pilot. I know it's crazy, and I'm piloting it with one school first. They have about 13 teachers, and created like going to meet with the administration. I'm going to use Teach Like a Champion 3.0 to guide the work, along with the instructional leadership, district leadership expectations, and we're doing relay and wit and wisdom, so grounding in that. And then I'm going to go to the classrooms for 10 minutes, then come back and look for trends, and then do a 6-week cycle of training support. My
Yeah.
biggest issue is that's one percentage of my work. I'm still have to answer emails. And coming from a principalship, I had 3 principalships pre-COVID and after, and had no AP. I know how to um manage my time very well, schedule blocking, putting things on my Outlook. But what has been sacrificed has been my presence sometimes because I have
Yeah.
3 boys. I've sacrificed
Mm.
being present. I was a very present principal, but at times I was present at all school activities, all that, but maybe I wasn't present every day at lunch at one school, or I sacrificed because whatever it was. And I know that took a hit in my principalship, and I end up leaving that. So my question is, in this new role where I'm doing 1,001 things. I actually had to take a leave earlier this year because I had burnt myself out.
Hmm.
And I keep telling my supervisors, like, hey, I need help or this is too much. But they like, oh, you're gonna be a superintendent, you can handle it. I'm literally like, no, I can't. This is too
Hmm.
much. How do you have boundaries with your superiors, but still be consistent with the work? Because what I shared with my superintendent was if I have 10 things to do, something is going to fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing I don't want to is my job that you're actually paying me
Sure.
for. I get it. In my previous role, I have held principalship so I could do certain things. But if you hired me to do this one thing, let me do that well and then let the others be an add-on.
Okay. Perfect. I
Have you
love
ever
it.
experienced that? And
Yes.
then give me one tip to navigate this season?
Okay, I'm going to give you and everybody more than one. So here's the one thing I would say. You got to get really clear with your supervisor. What are the 2 to 3 key results you expect from me uh, this year, right?
Mm,
Okay.
that's
And
good.
okay, I'd start there. And then the second part is I would stop answering all your emails. And
Mm,
I've got a couple thousand unopened emails. I don't I tell people, I said I don't answer emails, right? I don't have
yeah,
time to answer all the emails. But what I
yeah.
do is I find ways to check in with everybody every day. And I'll usually say, hey, did you email me something that I haven't, like, is there
Mm,
something you need, right? So build your communication flow where, and it sounds like you've got a lot of schools, so some of that might be hard, right? But so build your
Yeah.
communication flow where you can say, right, and it could just be an automated responder, say, hey, I answer emails, right? Two times a day, whatever it is, right? The first time at 11:30 and maybe the second time is at 3. I mean, I don't know, you could do like, I mean, whatever you
Mm,
want. But what I heard yesterday,
yeah. So I
one,
have so it's tricky. So I just want to add this one thing. Because I'm crisis support,
yeah,
I have to be on call the whole day.
yeah, but nobody
Because
should be
within a
emailing you a
crisis
crisis.
happening at a school,
I
I
got you.
have to respond in 4 minutes.
Okay,
No,
well,
in my role, my superintendent has told me like within 5 minutes you have to answer that email, and I'm the only point for that.
okay,
So
so
I'm
stop.
constantly
I got
having
you.
to check.
Yeah, so I would tell the superintendent, hey, look, I can't watch my emails all day, but here's what we can
Yeah.
do. Can everybody get me on a WhatsApp? Right? Or, could,
Mm,
is there, because you can look at your phone and text, but you can't be tied to your email account about. And I think that's where I would start. Is like you got to
yeah.
come up with a different way to communicate to you,
Yeah.
right? And then also, I would be really thinking about, and you could, if you're using AI, you could probably do this, right? You could say, hey, um, here's the last 50 emails I got. Can you build me like a
Mm,
frequently asked kind of questions, like a
mm,
document that's a or like a
I
link
love
to
that.
resources. So as soon as someone emails you, then you get this
Mm,
automated response that, hey, if these are any of your issues, like here's what to do. Something to that effect. And then it's like if this is a true, crisis, here's my WhatsApp.
yeah.
Send me a text. Because that's what I tell people all the time. Like, look, if you want me to check my email me
Yeah.
and then send me a text message and say, "Hey, I need you to
Mm,
check this by," right? Because
okay.
I can't bury my head in my phone
Yeah.
because I am out,
Yeah.
leading, right? So I think those would be two things. And then
That's good.
if you haven't read Maxwell's The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, it's the law of
Oh,
multiplication.
I just read it.
Yeah, so you need to, yeah, so that law of multiplication, you need to develop more leaders to be able to address this because we
Hmm.
all should be working on creating non-leader dependent organizations. Non-leader dependent, right? So non-principal dependent, non-superintendent, right? Like because we can't answer
Hmm.
everybody's messages. So, but what I can do though is
Yeah.
I can take those frequently asked, questions and start to really empower and
Hmm.
equip other people to make,
That's good.
decisions. And that way, Okay. So hopefully that's helpful.
I
And
love that.
and I live every day
No, that
by
was.
by
Thank you so
a
much.
yeah, every day, right? I ask myself two things. what's something I did today that I don't want to do tomorrow? And then who can I teach how to do that? Or does it even have
Good.
to be done, right? I used to do it, delegate it, dump it mode. So I love it. All right. Great question. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. So, all right. Hey, thanks for hopping in this Saturday morning. Love you all. Uh,
Thank you. That was
and,
great.
and
Thank you so much.
yeah,
God
you're welcome.
bless.
Yeah, you too, everyone. And make sure if you're not a member of our blueprint, please, hop in. You'll get access to all those resources and more time with me if that's valuable to you. So have a great Saturday. Bye bye.